What happens when an undercover CEO steps into his own store and freezes at the words of a seemingly ordinary cashier? Let's find out how one day can turn everything upside down. Mark Evans was no typical executive. At 45, he proudly oversaw Evans Mart, a convenience store chain that had blossomed from a single neighborhood shop into a thriving enterprise with dozens of locations over a 10-year stretch. Yet as the company flourished, Mark felt he was drifting away from the pulse of everyday operations. Numbers and reports only told part of the story, and he often wondered if his employees felt appreciated or if his original commitment to outstanding customer care still held strong. Eager for answers, Mark devised a daring plan. He would go undercover. He selected one of his busiest stores, the third branch he had opened in a lively urban district. Known for its high volume of shoppers and solid revenue, it seemed the perfect site for his covert visit. Clad in worn jeans, an old hoodie, and a weathered baseball cap, and having allowed himself to grow a bit of facial scruff, he transformed his appearance to remain unrecognized. Early that morning, the shop was already buzzing with patrons, scanning shelves and staff replenishing inventory. Mark introduced himself to the store manager, Joe, as Mike, a temporary worker from headquarters, and was swiftly assigned to stock shelves by the entrance. His plan was straightforward: observe, interact where possible, and listen closely. While sorting items, Mark caught sight of a cashier named Ryan, a young man who appeared to be in his early 20s. Ryan had an easy smile and greeted each customer warmly, often remembering their names and asking thoughtful questions about their lives. Mark admired how genuine Ryan seemed, but he had no clue just how far that generosity went, until he overheard a quiet exchange. Pausing his own task, Mark heard Ryan speaking to an older man dressed in a threadbare coat. The man, Mr. Thompson, was buying a small loaf of bread and a carton of milk, when Ryan said, "Don't worry about it today, Mr. Thompson. I'll cover it." The older gentleman hesitated, worried that Ryan would get into trouble. With a reassuring grin, Ryan whispered that everything would be fine, prompting a grateful thank you from the customer. Stunned, Mark silently asked himself why a cashier on a modest wage would pay out of his own pocket. Over the next few hours, Mark watched Ryan continue to help struggling customers, discreetly covering small bills, quietly applying discounts, and occasionally adding an extra item or two to people's bags without charging them. By the end of that first day, Mark's curiosity had reached its peak, so in the break room, he introduced himself to Ryan, still pretending to be Mike, and gently probed into the young man's motives. Ryan explained that many of the patrons, like Mr. Thompson, faced tough times, and he believed even small gestures could bring them hope. He admitted the impact on his own wallet wasn't huge, but it felt worthwhile to him because these neighbors needed a little help, and no one else seemed to be stepping in. The following morning, Mark returned, determined to piece together more of Ryan's story. Throughout his shift, he chatted with other employees. One of them, an older stockroom hand named Bill, told Mark in a hushed voice that Ryan had endured significant hardship. After losing his father as a teen, Ryan worked multiple side jobs to help support a younger brother. He rarely took sick days, never complained, and was quick to assist coworkers who were swamped. Bill admitted he worried about Ryan, who always extended kindness to others, yet rarely allowed himself any rest or relief. On the third day, after careful consideration, Mark resolved that the time had come to reveal his true identity. Once the last customer left and the store closed, Mark gathered the staff for a meeting. Standing before them in his casual attire, he removed his cap and introduced himself properly. "I'm Mark Evans, CEO of Evans Mart." A hush fell. Ryan stared in disbelief as Mark recounted how he'd been working undercover to get a first-hand view of store operations and employee experiences. Turning to Ryan, Mark praised the young cashier's selflessness. He commended him for going the extra mile for those less fortunate, well beyond any formal job requirement. Then, with a smile, Mark announced that Ryan would be promoted to a managerial role and receive a significant pay boost. As if that weren't enough, Mark promised to cover Ryan's younger brother's educational costs and establish a fund across all Evans Mart stores to support employees who might be facing hardship. Shaken by this unexpected honor, Ryan thanked Mark, emphasizing that he'd never expected anything in return for his kindness. Mark responded, "That's exactly why you deserve it. From that moment on, employees at the store felt a renewed sense of motivation. Customers appreciated the heightened spirit of compassion, and the entire location was held up as a shining example for the rest of the company. Mark also promised himself that he would step away from the charts and figures more often and spend time in his stores, getting to know the people who kept Evans Mart running day in and day out. That's the story, friends. Sometimes a simple act of generosity can capture someone's attention and spark a powerful chain reaction of goodwill. Feel free to share your own stories in the comments.